Intellectual disabilities are when an individual mentally develops at a below average rate. This usually leads to learning disabilities. What are symptoms of an intellectual disability? The main symptoms basically focus on difficulty thinking and understanding. There's other symptoms as well, including hyperactivity, impulsivity, or restlessness. There's some treatments to intellectual disability, but they only go so far. There are therapies, self-care such as physical exercise and special education, and there are specialists that you can go to. There's three categories to intellectual disabilities. The first category is mild. With a mild intellectual disability, the IQ is 50 to 70%. 85% of people fall under this category that have intellectual disabilities. Also, there is usually no unusual physical characteristics. They're slower than usual in developmental and learning areas. They are capable of learning practical life skills, and they can attain reading and math skills from grades 3 to 6. They also blend into society socially. With a moderate intellectual disability, the IQ tends to be 35 to 49. 10% usually fall under this category. It's noticeably seen to have developmental delays, including speech and motor skills. It's also more noticeable physically, and they're capable of learning basic health and safety skills. With the severe intellectual disability, the IQ is 20 to 34, and 1 to 2% usually fall under this one. This is the most severe and needs direct supervision in social situations. They also might learn very simple self-care, and they have little ability to communicate. The most common syndromes that occur from intellectual disabilities are autism, Down syndrome, and fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. Autism includes difficulty in communicating and forming relationships with other people. Down syndrome is a disorder arising from a chromosome defect that causes impairment and physical abnormalities. Lastly, fetal alcohol spectrum disorder is caused by excessive consumption of alcohol by the mother during pregnancy, which results in slow development and physical growth.
A learning disability is a condition giving rise to difficulties in acquiring knowledge and skills to the level expected of those of the same age, especially when not associated with a physical handicap. The three types of learning disabilities that I decided to talk about in this presentation are dyslexia, ADHD, and language processing. So dyslexia is going to be the first learning disability that I'm going to talk about. Some of the signs and symptoms are difficulty reading, like in a classroom, on the board, in a book, any type of reading. Confusing order of letters, so instead, like reading a word that says bat instead of comprehending it as tab or something like that. Issues copying letters down by hand or even switching directions, so like writing an upside down R instead of a normal R, and confusing letters and numbers. Some ways to help is to listen to the notes that are recorded rather than writing them. Using more time, because it is a lot easier to comprehend when there's more time to listen and try to copy it down, or use some other videos or other different tools rather than just writing down notes and like taking them down on your paper. The next learning disability I want to talk about is ADHD, or Attention Deficit Hyperactive Disorder. Some of the signs and symptoms for this specific learning disability is inattentiveness, hyperactivity, impulsivity, and lack of focus. This learning disability makes it very difficult for students to focus and actually understand what's going on in the classroom or just in daily activities. So some ways to help could be to repeat tasks and assignments. So if you repeat the homework, ADHD because of the inattentiveness could lead to lack of focus and zoning out. So if you repeat the tasks and assignments, it'll make it a lot easier for the student or whoever has a specific disability to hear the repeated word and then use that and know that it's important and be able to retain the information. Another thing is usually people with ADHD get very overwhelmed with a big group of people. So putting them in small groups so that they don't get too hyped up would really help their overall learning. And then also giving organization tools such as like a planner or an outline of some sort will definitely help them to stay on track and to sort the different topics that they've been learning. The next learning disability I'm going to talk about is language processing. And those who have language processing issues usually have difficulty comprehending. So just reading a story saying like, oh, okay, the brown bear lives in the woods, they wouldn't be able to comprehend anything about that sentence. They would get really confused and, I think things would kind of go over their heads. They have difficulty differentiating objects. So like if you say like banana, like they wouldn't understand that if you say the word banana and you're holding a banana that they're the same thing. And also difficulty expressing feelings or thoughts, or sort of feeling like there's something at the tip of their tongue and they can't really explain it because it's some kind of processing where in their brain they know what they're saying, but when they try to explain it to someone else, it doesn't come out the way that they want. So everything that's going on in their brain just has a hard time forming into words and phrases. So some ways to help if you're speaking to a person with language processing issues would be to speak slowly and make sure that they can understand every word that you're saying and make it easier for them to put your words together and understand the phrases that you're saying. Using visualization techniques rather than speaking or listening. So videos, using other like organizers, stuff like that, because it will really help them to see what you're showing them rather than trying to explain to them what you're seeing, because the explanation might not be as clear to them as if you showed them a picture or a video.
The Individuals with Disabilities Act defines speech and language impairments as a communication disorder such as stuttering, impaired articulation, and a voice impairment that adversely affects a child's educational performance. Some challenges at school for children with speech and language impairments include communicating with teachers and classmates, understanding and or giving oral presentations, participating in normal classroom discussions, and attaining normalcy within a group. Some causes of speech and language impairments could be developmental disorders, genetic syndromes, hearing loss, illness, neurological disorders, injury, and stroke. Types of speech impairments. Stuttering occurs when speech does not flow smoothly. Articulation disorders, 3 types. Omissions. Omissions emit a sound in a word. Distortions. Produce a sound in an unfamiliar manner. Substitutions. Replace one sound with another sound. Voice disorders occur because the vocal cords that produce sound are damaged. This is usually temporary. A specific language impairment, or SLI, is a language disorder that delays the mastery of language skills in children who have no hearing loss or other developmental delays. This is also known as a language delay, developmental dysphagia, or developmental language disorder. Aphasia affects the way a person talks and understands what they are saying. This can be caused by injury to those parts of the brain responsible for language, the left side of the brain.
A vulnerable population is any group in a community that is at a significantly higher risk for health-related problems than the rest of that community. These people struggle every day because they are not able to make the best informed decisions regarding their own well-being, and they are in constant need of increased attention involving their healthcare coverage and problems going along with their health. People with learning disabilities are more susceptible to various mental illnesses than the general population. Without assistance, the learning disabled may not be able to set up and pay for health care that covers them. Studies show that 72 to 94% of people diagnosed with a learning disability have at least one health problem that goes unattended. People with learning disabilities cannot always find jobs that help support their health coverage. In 2011, the country's unemployment rate was at 6%, while it was at a staggering 15% for those with learning disabilities.